Hey, it's Adam here, and you're watching The Culture Hack, where we're talking about how to create engaged workspaces that unlock the potential of your teams and drive your business forward in ways you've never seen. So stay tuned. Hello, Lindsay Harle-Kadatz. Welcome to The Culture Hack. Lindsay is the founder of BRP Consulting, a values vixen and overall amazing human being. Welcome, Lindsay. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, Adam. It's lovely to be here.
Amazing. And this is not our first time recording. We actually did a live chat about culture about a month ago, right?
Yeah, with the one and only Caitlin Bullock.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Amazing. Shout out to Caitlin if she sees this, right? Well, let's get into it. Tell me a little bit about BRP. What sort of craziness are you guys up to?
Yeah, BRP. So the BRP stands for Businesses Are People. And ultimately, what the company does is we go in and we help align leadership teams and get them on the same page using their values and turning these seemingly fluffy statements into real, tangible actions that provide guidance that people are connected to. And ultimately, what that does is create greater retention, greater engagement, stronger hiring practices, stronger collective stories, and sense of identity as a company and what that means to be in the company.
Okay, very cool. Sounds amazing. Where do I sign up?
Well, let me tell you.
Awesome. So, cool. All the things people related, culture related. We like to talk a little bit about engagement on this show because it's a funny term. Everyone has a different view on what that means. What's your view? What does engagement mean for a company?
That's a great question. Ooh, I love that. So when I talk about engagement, it's really about helping the individuals understand why they're there on a deeper level than beyond the paycheck. So what is it in their role that allows them to tap into their own self-determination? And this is based on self-determination theory, that individuals have this self-determining nature, which means we need these three psychological needs met. The first being autonomy, which is I have a choice. So I have ownership over my actions in my role. And I know why I'm doing them. And that comes into the third piece, which we'll get to in a second. The second piece of this psychological need is competence. So I am in control of my growth, of my mastery. I am competent at what I'm doing. So autonomy and competence, which seem very individualized, right? But you're tapping into the individual and the team, which then speaks to the third piece of the psychological need of this self-determining nature, which is relatedness. So I am connected. So you have this deeper sense of belonging. There's a group collective purpose. And so you understand then how your autonomy and your competence contributes to this larger relatedness collective, which is your team. And so you're starting to understand how you fit in the team, how others contribute to the team, and you're engaged because it's utilizing your own skills, your own values, your own inner psychological drive, motivation to participate in this larger purpose that we all understand and are connected to.
Oh, that is a great answer. Well, you just had that ready to go. That's perfect.
It's what I love. And I find this so fascinating because a lot of the times, when we think of leadership, we think of how do we get the macro to work together, right? Because it has to impact the macro of the business. But really, we have to come down to the individual level and identify the individuals and what makes these individuals tick, what's really important to them, so that we can have a deeper conversation, so we can impact the macro more. So that's really what it comes down to for me is we're dealing with people.
Mm-hmm.
Businesses are people.
Yeah, I love that. If I apply your model to something we talked about lots right now, working from home versus working in the office or hybrid or whatever. So a lot of companies will say, yeah, sure, Monday or Friday, work from home, Tuesday, Thursday in the office. And I've heard a lot of feedback that that's not working. They're going to switch back to all in the office or whatever. But if I look at your list here, like, you know, if we're in the office, then all of a sudden we all start working from home, the relatedness suffers. We stop communicating, right? It's a different way of viewing the world. But if I tell you you have to be in the office on this day, but not on that day, now you don't have an autonomy. I think really what people want is choice. Come when your team needs you, right? Or that you want to be here. So,
and it's also really interesting too, because so my husband works in an office with the option to work remote, and the majority of his colleagues do work from home. They're engineers. So it's like going to people, no. My husband, though, is an extrovert, and he loves being around people. So working from home, even though I'm here, but working from home doesn't fuel him, right? So he needs to go to the office. And what's been shared is that because he's gone into the office and the personality that he brings of connection and relatedness, more people have started to want to come into the office because it's an energy that you want to be around. And so it's an autonomy. They have choice, but now they're choosing to go in. And he just likes going in because he is very much, I like the separation between work and business, which is fair. That's also a mindset. That's a personality preference. So it's when it's hybrid, it is what is this choice. But are you making the choice? If you want people in your office, really, are you being intentional about creating the environment to bring them in so that they can, because they can still be productive. They can still have that autonomy, that control, but they're really tapping into that connectedness. Now, some teams simply cannot work in an office together by the nature of remote. So then how do you build that? And that's where a lot of teams need to focus on, is how do we build that sense of relatedness, that connection when we are working as a remote team.
I love that. So do you have any stories or examples of organizations or situations you've worked with and you've been able to move the needle for them?
Yes. What stories would you like? No. One example is a fairly recent one, where I did a values and leadership workshop where the leadership team was newish to one another, with some people on the team who've been in the organization 10 plus years. They, in fact, were part of creating the values that they still have to this day. And the newest one had been in his role 2 days, right? So quite a difference. And so this national company has this leadership team of 8 that they needed to get on the same page because of an incident that happened with an email where one of the leaders sent an email that said, this goes against our corporate values. And he could not, for the life of him, share why. That's a problem. When you cannot state, well, why does this go against? Then there's a lack of clarity. So we got the team in a room and we did an in-depth workshop whereby we broke down and started to understand, well, what are the personal values? What are your core person values? Beyond, here's a list of, here's 20, 10, now go and narrow, right? It really went into the meat of what does every person in this room personally value? Because that's where that individual's reaction was coming from. So they're starting to understand what's the emotional aspect that values have. And then we talked about the corporate values that they had. Do they still stand? What does it mean to everybody? Did a few of that. And from that, there was this huge leadership team commitment of, well, what are we going to do to bring this, what we've done today, through the rest of our organization? Because we have big goals, we're growing, and how do we do it in a consistent way that builds on the culture rather than hinders it? And since then, I know that a couple of the leaders who are in that room have gone and taken those exercises to their teams, and their teams have been working a lot more closely, a lot more aligned. They've started to integrate a lot more culture building aspects around the values, so people understand, hey, this is who we are and this is how we do things. And it's not pizza. It's really engaging in the conversations, and they are now looking at doing a company-wide effort in November at their annual general meeting with how are we going to continue to grow these values and really make sure that we're living them, that everybody understands what they mean and has a personal connection to them. So it's just fascinating to me what a little value exercise can do to create alignment and clarity and just build that deeper connection for trust. That's so crucial within an organization.
I love how in this story the team just bought into it and then started spreading it outward, right? Like an organization was ready for something like that when they eat it up and they understand the value and they push it out and they talk about it and all this kind of
and you've hit such a good point. Yes, the team has to be ready. I mean, and most of the leaders and the companies that I work with is they have grown to a certain point without intention on what their values are. And now they're starting to see we are going here and we want to make sure that we're growing with a really intentional culture. So now how do we get everybody aligned with the values that we had when we were just small and 5 people, and now we're up to 30 plus and we're going bigger, and how do we continue to grow that? And they're ready and they're proactive and they can see these are leaders who are so committed to making sure they build organizations that people don't just want to be at, like get into, but they want to stay at. And so they want to build career companies as opposed to stepping stone companies.
I like that. That's very cool. So in your travel, do you think, looking to the future, that more companies are starting to think like this? Or is it, like you said, just the ones that have leadership that's committed to this idea or believes in it?
Honest to goodness, I do believe more organizations are focusing on this simply because of the ease in which it is to leave a company now, right? And the thing, what I mean by that is generations coming in understand their values, understand what they're worth and what they will and they won't work with, right? And it's not that they're not motivated to give it their all. They absolutely are, but it's in what conditions. And so the leaders now who are going into these positions recognize that. I also want to be very clear, though, is that one culture that works for one organization does not necessarily mean that it's going to be productive in another. And that, again, comes down to values, which comes down to the who is of the business. Because, I've had a lot of companies, like I've worked with a number of construction organizations, for example, all of whom have safety as their value. They all have very different definitions of what safety is. Some say that it's simply, we want to get our people home safe. That's not bad, but but it's the physical safeness that they want to get them home to. Others are starting to focus in, we want our people to be psychologically safe in these physically unsafe places. So how do we support that? Because we're learning more about how does this impact, and I'm pointing at my brain, my head this thing, giant. How does the brain actually impact how we're working? And how does a unpsychologically safe environment impact safety? So there's this whole realm of what we're starting to understand more so of, how do these seemingly fluffy, woo-woo things like values actually operate on a deeper biological way? What's happening in our brains? And then that goes to organizational psychological information, right? So it's really, yes, business is changing, but not every industry and business is changing at the same place, and not everyone needs to, if it doesn't align with their values.
I like that. I think one of the tricky stuff about psychological safety is that you could have done these 3 things over here and it worked, and you come over here and you try them and they totally fail. Right? There's no one right answer, but you figured out what's not working here. So you keep going, right?
Yeah.
Something will stick.
And as so you and I, we both deal in brand and culture. And I used to say I did brand for marketing. Now I do it for culture work. And the thing is, like, when people come and say, "Oh, I just need a brand refresh," I think we chatted about this, is that it really means you are actually having a culture misalignment. Because if we were to just do a brand refresh and give this to your people, and not allow them the time and space to nudge themselves forward into the beliefs that they now have to rewrite to be aligned with what this rebrand is, that's all mental work. That's all. We have to start dealing with people's underlying beliefs, because our values, business or personal, are the underlying beliefs upon which we take aligned action. So how are we helping our people understand what beliefs could actually be in opposition to what the values of our company are, or where we're going?
I love that. Okay. Well, you heard it here first. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for sharing your wisdom with us this morning. I hope people watching get some gems from there and maybe change their perspective a little bit. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. This was lovely.
Hey, thanks for watching The Culture Hack. Do you want to chat culture and engagement? Give us a call and come on the show.